Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. As I said, great to be here after being stuck in this banner for like 6 to 8 weeks. I've seen myself go all over the place. Today I'm here to share with you a little bit about, let's say, underlying factors that we see in the world of branding and B2B branding. Again, we're in this wonderful place where actually the very first brands of the world were being traded. It's an excellent choice by Binder to be here. And I want to start with with this word. When people ask me to share with them a little bit about LinkedIn, it can go all sorts of ways. Usually there's no end to it. So I can take quite some time, which I know is a little bit of a challenge as we're pressed for time. So I pull up this word, and it's success. And what I really like about this word is that it sums up actually what we are trying to do on a day-to-day basis for our audience, is to make them more successful. And so by show of hands, so who here has a LinkedIn profile? So for those in the front, everyone raises their hands. And who has been there this week on LinkedIn? All of the hands go up. Great. So, and in fact, this is a little a testament to that. Is that, and I won't ask you individually why you go there, but usually you go there to be more successful. And it's also really a nice way of describing to my children actually what I do all day. Because like many of you, we all have now titles that didn't exist, I think, 5 or 10 years ago. And so when they ask me what I do all day at LinkedIn, I say I try to make people more successful. And this is actually what I'm doing right now, what I'm trying to do right now. And there's another thing that's interesting about it, and that is that success is something that we all strive for, and it's all within all of us. And to be successful, you can actually not do it by yourself. You need a network. You need other people to be successful. And so this is also a very important tenet of the word success. Without all of the product pitch and all the great stuff you can do on our platform, this is actually what we're all about, to try and to make you more successful. Now, switching gears a little bit, and I was able to be up here and look at the audience a little bit, but I'm still going to do it anyway. If you look at the diversity of people, and I tend to, let's say, look back a little, I ask myself, so who remembers this game, actively playing this game, by raise of hands, by actively playing? You're all liars. You're all liars. You all know the game. Don't worry, it will stay in the field. Actually, so this is the game of Pong. And it was released by Atari in, anyone know the year? 80s? It's in 1972. 1972, this was like the biggest thing in gaming. Now switch a little bit to FIFA 17. My 9-year-old son plays FIFA 17. I can even hold a controller, right? So in 1972, this game came out, and it was the biggest thing. And I think 2 years after, when it really spread to other parts of the world, and it wasn't a connected world like now, I was actually playing this game. So those people that raised their hand that actually actively played this game back then, I want to welcome you all, because you are all digital immigrants. You are not digital natives. You know of a world when this still existed and nothing was connected and there was no digital world out there. And so, by being here, another congratulations, because actually you were able to shift gears over time and stay, let's say, relevant in this current connected world. And so, I praise you for that. And obviously for myself, being here, it's quite remarkable, and I think many of you have similar experiences. I'm working for a company that, was nowhere near when I graduated from school. So it's a completely different time. Now, on another note, and I won't ask the raise of hands, but this is actually what in the 80s the desk looked like. And I want to take you through actually what the desk has evolved to. Every single piece of equipment that has been on our desk, at least at my desk, from the 80s onwards, has gone into the computer. And actually, this is a little bit old now because actually it has gone into the smartphone. And so now, even your brand has gone into the smartphone. Your brand has become digital. And so you see all of those little icons all over the place, and now finally they're all in one place. So it's a remarkable world. Enter the millennial age group, because in my opinion, this is truly transforming the world in a very fast pace. And this is really what we are, why you constantly hear about this, is that this has a profound impact on how you work with your brand and how you maintain relevancy. By 2020, 50% of the millennials, 50% of the workforce will be millennials, and in that year, there's entering people in the workforce that have never known a world without a connected smartphone. So if you think of those numbers, that's truly mind-changing. And the reason why a lot of brands and a lot of companies have a little bit of a struggle in the current connected world is because the brand is no longer a property which is solely belongs to you. As Scott Cook said, it's no longer what we say it is, it's what consumers and people tell each other what it is. And this is very scary. This is very scary because other people start to give meaning to your brand and start to give value to your brand. And it can go on the upside and it can go on the downside. I've heard, people say, I've gone from hashtag to bashtag, right? Overnight. It takes an army of one these days to make that happen. So that's one of the first challenging things that we see happening. Now, secondly, what you'll then see is that there's old versus new thinking, because this millennial generation, they have no respect for the status quo. And this can be very frustrating because, as we expect people to work from their desk, this is a generation that wants to work mobile. I see many mobiles out here. It's not about managing time, it's empowering results, right? Actually, it's behavior over skills. It's fail often and fast instead of fear of failure. So try a lot of stuff. It's open communication instead of top-down. And so there's many of these tenets that we see changing currently in the workforce and in the world of marketing. And what applies here to employees basically also applies to the consumers. The consumers out there, you could read consumers here. So this is an important factor. Now thirdly, this is one of my favorite quotes, and I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it. It's that culture has become the most defining underlying part of success, and culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the funny thing is that we are all part of a culture, and we are all contributing actively to a culture, whether it's a good one or a bad one, either in the office or in our personal lives. The more culture you have in an organization, the less corporate BS you need. You don't need a lot of rules if you have a strong culture. And maybe you recognize this. And to give you a little example of this, for you guys on the right-hand side is Brian Chesky of Airbnb. In 2013, this is how they started. And in a way, and we'll get to that, it's a very humanized brand. It's because actually what can get more personal than sleeping at someone's place that's not yours, right? And he wrote an article, a blog piece, that said, don't up the culture. I know this is being filmed, right? I never know where it's going. And that was a very interesting thought, because in 2012, when they finished their Series C funding, and they had Peter Thiel come over, one of their investors, and they were in Berlin in a conference room, and they shared a lot of data points, and a lot of progress onto, because obviously, people give you money, and you want to show progress, and you want to show points. And then halfway through the meeting, actually Brian Chesky asked Peter Thiel, so what is the single most important piece of advice you actually want to give us as today? In 2012 was that. And he said, don't up the culture. And what he meant by that is that as you will grow, and as you will get more stakeholders, and as you will serve more people, the stronger you remain in your culture, and the more you can have these cultural tenets, the stronger your company will be. Because ultimately, if you grow, and if you become a large company, and maybe in our careers, one day or the other, we've been there, it's almost inevitable that what I would call you get your fair share of idiots on board, right? Those are people that are along for the ride. Those are people that want to take instead of give. And I can guarantee you, as long as you can keep them out the door, the more successful your company will be. So the culture is a very important thing. Now, of course, it's not just saying you have a culture and that's that. You really have to bring those tenets to life. That's a very important thing. Because actually, what a recent study of us found is that 66% of the people looking for companies, looking for their next play, they look for culture. They really want to have purpose over profit. They really look, I mean, this ties very much into the former slides I showed. They really want to work for a company and for a cause they truly believe in. Because in the end of the day, and maybe this is an open door, but it's not about making the most money. And people now start to realize that. That's the era we are in. And so the better you can surface and show your culture as a brand, and as an employer, the stronger your organization will be. And so these are some of the cultural tenets that we live by at LinkedIn, and that, let's say, are surfaced all over our 33 offices and among our 11,000 employees. And so this is actually what we look for in a cultural fit when people join, and also how we stay true to our vision and mission, which I'll get to. So, for instance, transformation is a very important one. So the single most piece of constant factor that we have out there is change. And the funny thing is, when you confront people with that, a lot of time when people join, they say, I love change, right? I'm all for change. I want to change things. I want to be in a dynamic environment, right? Well, try and seat people, let's say a half year after they worked somewhere, try and seat there somewhere else in the office. Only that little thing. We don't like change, right? And it's all these little things. So transformation is a very important one. And of course, collaboration. As I just said, you can never be successful on your own. You need other people. And so how we operationalize that culture and those values is through this vision. It's creating economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. Now, why is that so important? Why is that people love this about the LinkedIn brand, and this is why they want to work for us? It's because it has meaning and it has purpose. And it's this single vision around talent in the world is very democratically distributed all over the world. There's talent in each and every one of us. But the opportunity to do something with that talent is not at all distributed democratically. It still depends very much on where you were born, in what circumstances you were born, what country you were born, under what regime, etc., etc. And so by platforms of scale, we hope ultimately to bring those two much closer together. And this is a vision, this is a purpose, actually, that drives a lot of the stuff we do on our platform. So, by show of hands, so who here has a one-sentenced vision in their company that every employee knows and they live by? So I see about 25 hands, 20 hands, and I think this is the true challenge, because often, you know, this vision and this purpose or the mission, it's usually saved for the annual report, and then it goes in the drawer, right? And we've seen in the financial industry what can happen, you know, if the moral compass, you know, goes astray, and people don't live by, you know, a certain culture or certain mission and values no longer. And so this is also why it's very important, because we as consumers now expect companies, you know, to not only have that strong culture, but to have a meaningful culture. Because consumers, they look for value, but citizens, they live in meaning. And we are all now citizens. And especially in this social environment that we are. So this is why that's very important. So how we bring that to life is last week at Talent Connect, we launched our new company page and our new career page. And there's many ways in which you can bring that to life. So I would encourage you to look up some of these companies. This is one example, Uber, where they actually show, you know, the biggest question of people is, what is it really like to work there? And this is actually how you can show that. So let's say away from just the job specifics. Now it ties very, very nicely into personal branding. Because as we all sit here, personal branding is very, very much part of our lives, and we are all still learning it, but the generation behind us is not even learning it, it's just a normal state of doing. I mean, if you look at how you know, these young people present themselves on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or, you know, Vine, you know, it's all some form of personal branding. And when people ask me what personal branding is, I usually say, so what is it that I find of you when I Google your name? So what does it say about you? What do I find around your person? Similar, by the way, to companies. And another thing, obviously, is that you all know this phrase, right? It's not what you know, it's... No, that's wrong. It's who knows you. That's become much more important. It's not so much who you know, it's who knows you and what you stand for. And so we have a tremendous array of tools on our platform to stand out and to present yourself. And not only from an employee perspective, but also from a professional level and the representation you are for your company. Anyone seen this one on our platform? People, I see some nods. Yeah. Anyone wondering if you can get it full? A lot of people, they email me and said, how do I get this full? Well, a little secret, you can't. So this is a little way of gamification, of course. The reason why this is this is really very much also a part of our current culture. Nothing is ever done. Nothing is ever perfect. So actually, your brand, your personal brand, your employer brand, your company brand, it takes constant taking care of. So it's something that you constantly have to work on. And so this is also very much in a new generation, a thing that we see with a lot of people is that they say, well, it's better done than perfect. So why go for the last 5% if you can do 95%? Great. So this is what that ties into. So when you have that strong culture and you bring that to life and you have and you enable your people to work with their professional brand, then something that is usually overlooked when it comes to marketing and social media is that basically you are overlooked. Because employee engagement is really a factor that hardly comes into play when companies start to engage with the world at large. So they usually look over their employees for stakeholders instead of empowering their current employees to help them with that. In fact, in a recent study we did internally, only 5% of the social media content of a company is shared by the employees in their own networks. 95% is the Terra clown, right? Or is the cats, maybe the Trump video. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff out there. So this is a very important factor when it comes to brand your story and your message over social media, is to look for that you already have a lot of brand ambassadors in your company. So who here loves the company they work for? Yes, right? Right? I still see people sitting there like, not me. Right? So this is a very famous quote of Simon Sinek. So it's really important. You know, if you didn't raise your hand, you're in the wrong profession, or you're at the wrong, maybe in the right profession, but in the wrong company, and maybe you want to look for something else. But this is really important, because we, as myself for LinkedIn and you for your organizations, you are the true brand ambassadors in everything you say, you do, etc., etc. So it's very important to keep that in mind. You know, when you know, instead of just looking at the outside, you also look at the inside. So what it goes to show is that it's a great way to empower your people to become social professionals and to help them and to have programs in place to make them become better at being a social professional. I never understand this whole discussion of companies when it says, yeah, you know, I blocked a couple of channels in my organization because people are on social media and they should do that in their own time, right? So I never understand why people would take that away, let's say, of their employees and the professionals they work with, as it could have such a tremendous impact on what they do. And in fact, there are stats showing that if you don't do that, but you do the opposite, and you incentivize them, you're almost 60% more likely to attract great talent, because you have an open culture. And you able them to share your culture, and you're able them to share the great things you do as a company. And on all sorts of other metrics, it's had a tremendous effect. And so we've seen many companies devise special strategies to employee engagement. You know, it's part of their onboarding when they join the company. You know, you have profile photo sessions, you work in small workshop where you set your professional brand. It's all these different ways you can utilize our platform and really you know, make the people that work for you brand ambassadors. So from culture and the branding and the personal branding, there's also another underlying factor which we all recognize, is that we're currently in the human era. And the human era is the era, actually, if you go back in, you know, starting somewhere in 1900, you know, you had the era of manufacturing. So you had these huge companies like Boeing and Ford, and they were like huge manufacturers. And then came the age of distribution. So Walmart is a very good example, who became very good in distribution on a global scale. And then we got the information age, started about in the 80s into the 90s, information age, the internet age, and then since about 2000s we switched to the human era. And the human era is basically an era where a company acts and speaks much more like a human that they used to. So what makes a human era company is basically the question, and I have some examples later on. So it's companies that actually, you know, speak as a consumer would speak. They are not afraid to admit their faults. They're not afraid to switch back if they made an error. I remember Reed Hastings of Netflix getting up on a press conference when he changed the subscription model. He lost about 400,000 subscribers to his DVD service. He got up on stage and he said, sorry, I screwed up, we'll change it, and double the amount came back. When Tim Cook did the same thing with Apple Music and the artist, he said, sorry, we got it wrong, we'll change it back. And this is a very, very important part of being a human era company. It's also the ability to let people have a glimpse of what's behind the curtain. So true openness. And the funny thing is, being a social company, being a social organization is not something you can sprinkle on after the fact. Because if you do that, you know, we're all smart enough to see what is a campaign and what is truly driven by purpose and culture, right? I mean, and my children, age 14 and 9, when they're on YouTube all day, and they see that also. They can exactly spot what is a campaign that's trying to sell something to them or what is really true meaning. So it becomes even more and more important in the coming years. So now, what I'm trying to say is, so success in social media is about people and it's not about technology. It's about the exchange of engagement and ideas between people. That's a very important thing. So I have an example. Anyone know what this is? Anyone have kids? Yeah, great, you have kids. Anyone with kids? Yeah. Anyone know what this figurine is? What's it called? A Ninjago. Actually, to be more specific, it's a JZX. A JZX Ninjago. It's part of a kit. You actually can, it's hard to buy separate. You have to buy it in a kit. Okay? So Lego, actually, this is a great example of being a human error. Because what happened here? Little David from England bought that kit from all his saved up money, and I can relate because I see my children saving money. And he bought that kit and he lost this little figurine. And his dad said, well, maybe you should write a short email to Lego explaining that you lost it. And so he did. And he wrote an email and he said, I'm very sorry, you know, I was at Sainsbury and I lost it. And, you know, my dad said I should send it. So the representative of Lego that received that email said, well, actually, I spoke to my boss and I'm not allowed to give you a new one as you admitted that you lost it. Sorry. But I spoke to Sensei Wu, which is one of the other figurines in the box, right? And Sensei Wu is a very powerful and wise man. And Sensei Wu said, no army of mine can go without the JZX. And so, in fact, here you will find, in 2 weeks' time, you will find an envelope with JZX in it, together with a couple of other figurines to make your army complete again, and now you can conquer the world. And this, I want to remind you of this, like speaking and acting as a human. And we see all of these examples all over. Everyone knows the company Coolblue, right? Have you ever seen that they send handwritten cards if something really goes wrong? It's that simple, right? I know of restaurants that have vouchers in the back pocket that they say to their employees, if it really goes wrong, we'll let it up to your decision. You just give the voucher, they don't have to pay for the meal. And it's all of these little things where you empower individuals and organizations to do right when no one's looking, and you see what happens. And not only online. Ever see this one? So in this restaurant, you can order a Bandit plate. So if you have children, you recognize this. You go to a restaurant, they have all these beautiful stuff on the menu, but your kids, they don't know what to choose, or they don't see anything to choose. And so what the restaurant said is, just order the Bandit plate. It's €0, and you can just steal food from your parents. Now, it's a very small gesture, but it can have such a tremendous impact of being a human error company, of understanding, as I just said, why citizens live in meaning instead of value. And so I never understand this whole discussion about, you know, can I get the water for free at a restaurant? Do I have to pay for the restroom? It's all these ridiculous things that we've grown up with that we kind of find normal, which is not normal at all. And not normal to the people now, you know, entering the workforce and people that are now coming of age. So, and there's, I advise you to have a look for these examples. And every time you see one of those, I collect them a little bit in a little folder and say, yeah, this is a human error company. So, and to let you in on a little secret, and I have to go, I'm sorry, to let you in on a little secret, so not that I'm inviting you, but I'm having people sometimes call me on my cell because they lost their password. Okay? And they're surprised that I can fix it for them even too. So, I mean, because, you know, customer service, of course, is not a department, it's an attitude. That's very important. So, Is your brand human? Now, I'm not sure if you can take notes, but this presentation will be shared afterwards. But, I mean, is it hard to reach a real person? Do you still send those emails which say, don't reply? Please, don't reply. Click on a link, but don't reply. I don't know why. You know, can you say sorry? So, and this is one of the other famous quotes that I really like, is that we are now in the age of counting the impressed and not the impressions. For those of you that have been in online marketing a little longer, you know how we used to count, let's say, the impressions and the clicks. It's not about that. It's the impressed. The impressed can make a tremendous difference for your brand, as you saw in the foregoing Lego example. So, on a closing thought, Andy Stanley, a very famous minister, that's another advice. If you are surrounded by people, you know, that are constantly adhering to the status quo and you have no diversity there, eventually you'll be surrounded by people that have nothing to say. So that's also a very important thing to keep in mind. Now, summing it all up, this is actually what we show at a lot of people that come into our company, is we say, you know, to sum up everything we do in our culture and everything we do as a brand, is we dream big, we get shit done, and we know how to have fun. And I thank you very much for your time.